What you are about to hear will blow your mind and give you six-pack abs without even exercising.
Pull up a bar stool and relax.
Hey, who wants to have some fun?
You've made it to Happy Hour with John Gaskins.
Oh, no. Not again.
Get ready for entertaining local and regional sports talk that will change your life. Or not.
And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Here's your host, John Gaskins.
Here's Johnny. Hello! Ah!
I'm back, baby! I'm back!
Hey, happy hour on a Tuesday. Turned out to be a big news Tuesday. A development, some would say shocking, from a story that had become such a feel-good story locally and nationally for USD softball. We'll get to all that. My thoughts, remarks. We'll connect dots. Robert Wagner, the coach, is out. All that in a moment. Jerry Palesci, the voice of USD women's basketball, is with us today. Not to talk Coyotes, but Sioux Falls will be putting in a bid to host opening round games, those new play-in games in the expanded NCAA tournament starting this upcoming March. He has all the details on how you put bids in and what he can tell us about how the NCAA tournament decides these sites. Sioux Falls has never done it in NCAA men's basketball. They have bid before, but now this may be a better opportunity. And I can't wait to hear all about it. And our final Timberwolves talk, at least until the team makes a big move now that the season is over and it ended with such a loud, painful thud against the Spurs. What kind of moves will they make? Still got Ant in his prime, but the window is only so big. Chris Johnson, USF head coach, diehard Wolves fan. Johnny Oppold, co-owner, Orion Pub, the Wolves Watch Bar. If you've missed them, they've been fun. They've been entertaining. These guys have a lot of insight, and we'll get to it. But, yeah, big story today. USD softball went from, wow, what a wonderful weekend, to, whoa, wait, what just happened? 3 days after the Coyotes' first ever NCAA tournament trip and win in the program's 48-year history. This was their most successful season. And 2 days after a clip of associate head coach Shannon Pivovar's uplifting "I'm so proud of you" video went viral. Multiple millions of people now have seen it. And for all the right reasons, everything that's great about college softball made Coach Piv a star. Her boss, head coach Robert Wagner, all of a sudden we learn at 2 p.m. today, is no longer the coach after a decade at the helm, saying on his Twitter account that he is stepping away after 10 years in Vermilion. The university releasing a short statement saying there will be a coaching change, a change in leadership for the softball program, and a national search will begin immediately for the next South Dakota softball coach. That's it. Nowhere in the statement did the university thank Wagner for his 10 years and the incredible last couple weeks the Oats just had, winning the Summit League tournament for the first time ever. Like, these were the two best weeks in program history. They were the ultimate underdog story, and they beat a Power 4 team in Louisville a day after they had a fifth-inning lead on the number one team in the country, Nebraska. So this certainly appears to be based off of statements made, and that's all we can go off of. A USD decision, just based off the release. And I've reached out to Athletic Director John Schemmel. He has not responded, and someone I trust has already reported this was a Schemmel decision, a USD decision to not renew Coach Wagner's contract. And is it shocking, considering the Coach Piv thing and the weekend? Yes. Ultimately surprising? Maybe not, considering Schemmel has come into USD. If it's true that he didn't renew Wagner's contract, and he has not been afraid to shake things up in his less than 2 years leading the athletic department, and Wagner's record was not sterling overall. 224 and 297. Neither of the conditions in Vermilion, they weren't sterling either under his watch. They went through a lot of lengths to practice and play. We'll get to that in a moment. But this man spent most of his career in Washington, Utah, and Arizona. He helped Arizona State to 2 national titles, reached 8 College World Series as associate head coach there. He's been a head coach at Scottsdale Junior College and Odessa Junior College in Texas. And even though Vermilion and Summit League softball, that's a whole nother universe compared to these warm weather places and a huge program like ASU. Wagner was here for 10 years, and it appeared he certainly wanted to stay. The full tweet today that he gave to announce he's no longer the coach, quote, "For my entire adult life, I have been a United States Marine and a coach. That's my resume. USD gave me the opportunity to live out my dreams. My family and I have given everything to Vermilion, the USD softball program, and Vermilion for the last 10 years. This year's team accomplished things that had never been done in the history of the program. It has always been my intention to finish my career at USD. Therefore, I will be stepping away as head coach of USD softball." Those last 2 sentences don't gel, do they? It's always been my intention to finish my career at USD. Therefore, I will be stepping away. So maybe this is a retirement and his career is over based off of those 2 sentences. But again, word is that this was a non-contract renewal, that this was a USD decision. Brian Betcher, former sports information director there, tweeted today that this was the case. He was informed, Wagner, that he will not have his contract renewed. A lot of contracts at USD are 1-year contracts in their athletic department. Don't know if Wagner's was that case year to year or not. Certainly in the bigger boy sports, you have to have longer contracts. Football, basketball, women's basketball. We all know Eric Peterson's going into the final year of his contract, and Schemmel's made a lot of waves by deciding to not extend that, despite Peterson being a top 3 Summit League Coach of the Year candidate this past year for what he did. So, again, Schemmel's not afraid to rattle the cages. The timing of this is just crazy. But if these things are true, and I trust Brian Betcher, he's incredibly well connected in the Vermilion community, then this Schemmel must have made up his mind before this run happened, where all the feels were happening for USD softball. Another thing Brian Betcher tweeted, considering those conditions under which Wagner coached, starting 10 years ago when David Herbster, the man who came before Schemmel, hired Wags. Brian Betcher tweets that Wagner's teams set up batting cages on Coyote Landing, spent a year practicing inside an old warehouse off campus, spent another year driving to Sioux City for practices, and made numerous trips to Yankton, but they won anyway and created their best recruiting pitch these last few weeks. Here is Robert Wagner just a week ago. We thought winning the Summit League tournament, going to the NCAA tournament for the first time, was a big, wonderful deal for Coyote softball and Robert Wagner. We hadn't seen anything yet after they challenged the Huskers and beat Louisville. And then before that, in the game that they lost in extra innings to Grand Canyon, the Coach Piv viral moment. Before all that, I asked Robert Wagner about 10 years in Vermilion, what he's learned in facing the challenges, a mid-major in a tiny, maybe the smallest Division I city in America, has thrust at him, and what he's learned.
I think the biggest things are the questions and the fears that I had. They were a lot bigger in my mind than when I got here. And then, the things that I thought were going to be great were a lot better. And so that's kind of the reason why we're still in Vermilion, and we still want to be a part of USD and build this program up to something that it's never been before. But it's amazing being in this city, this town, I should say, where it's backed by the community and everyone's a part of USD, and literally the university is in the middle of the town. And my family loves it here. You know, we've grown roots, and when I came, we had a couple small little children, and now they're big, and we've added one. And so there are challenges, but there's challenges and things that you need to overcome wherever you go. And so I feel like the advantages and the beautiful things about this place far outweigh any disadvantages that we may have.
This does not sound like a guy who wanted to leave and wants to leave Vermilion, but now he has to. David Herbster, the man that hired him, by the way, today, also put out a tweet. Thank you, Wags, for everything you did to build and develop the young women of the South Dakota softball program for 10 years. You led with integrity and pride while always putting the ladies of the program first. So Wagner is out now. Maybe we'll learn from Schemmel if it's confirmed that the contract was not renewed. And we'd love to hear from Wagner someday. But the truth is, he's no longer the coach. His bio is not on the GoYotes.com website anymore, the athletic program's website. The name at the top of the list is now Shannon Pivovar, the associate head coach. And she's the one that has happened to be the person who has been getting a lot of the accolades for USD nationally just because of that clip, that moment. She's telling a pinch hitter who just delivered a game-tying 2 RBI hit to tie an NCAA tournament game to keep this season alive that she was so proud of her. And and now she might be the new head coach. She's obviously a strong candidate. Why would she not be, considering all of this that just happened? 7 of her players on the roster were from Nebraska. A couple of them had big hits and were major contributors. She's a Nebraskan. This is what Piv had to say toward the end of my chat with her on Monday here on Happy Hour, where we learned a lot more about the Shannon Pivovar story. But she tells us what Robert Wagner and the hiring of her at USD meant, because Shannon Pivovar was hired within 24 hours of being told by the University of Sioux Falls she was no longer the Cougars' head softball coach after 5 seasons. This was 3 years ago, 2 years ago in 2024. And here is Pivovar telling us about the moment Wagner hired her.
The year before, he actually tried to get me to come when he had an opening, and timing is everything. And at that time, I turned him down. You know, we had gotten to know each other through being out on the recruiting trail and seeing each other and playing fall games and things like that. So, I knew who he was and what his program stood for and all of it. And like I said, timing's just everything. He picks up the phone and calls me and says, you still need to be in coaching. You deserve to be in coaching. This game needs you. And that was something that at that moment was massive in terms of what I needed to hear. And he's given me tons of responsibilities here. He's let me dig my hands in and get dirty and do the blue collar kind of work, which is what I've always believed in doing. The big flashy stuff isn't who I am. And so he's allowed me to do that. And I'm thankful and grateful that he's given me those opportunities, that he's allowed me to work on his staff, that he's taught me the game deeper than I've ever known the game. And so he's a really good softball coach that has done things for a really long time in this sport, and means a lot.
Yeah. What were his absolute strengths with the players that connects that start to that finish?
Yeah, I think we had some of his kids from Arizona State that like zoomed in and told us stories. And I think just him, like I said, knowing the game, being able to translate that to them and keep it on a level that our kids understand. I think that's huge. And he puts this competitive belief in them where sometimes they don't have it. He challenges them. And he knows the game of softball. And I think they soak in that information when they're around him, that like, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I want to just take a small piece of that with me into what I'm doing next. He's lined up a mental performance guy for us. He's done the kids who have won it all, come back and let's do a Zoom with them so that our kids can try and relate to that. Like, these connections that he has just really changed kind of the face of what USD softball is, I think.
So did you catch that there near the end, in the last 30 seconds or so, when Piv told us about some of the things she's learned from Bobby Wagner that she will take wherever is next? Whatever is next in her career. Well, that next could be either University of South Dakota softball coach or probably another job somewhere else. Because if they do a national search and they don't hire Piv as the head coach, I'm going to guess the new head coach, most head coaches hire their own staff. And Piv will be on her way to coach somewhere else. But she'd be a really good hire, clearly. USD had a big moment in the sun with the pinch hitter who got her 5th hit of the year, Katie Hoffner, in that Saturday loss in the Coyotes' last game. That you shouldn't hire somebody because of a viral moment, but it was an encapsulation of who Piv is as a coach. She said as much to us on the show on Monday.
I want to know their stories off the field. I want to know how they're doing in classes. I want to know what they're looking forward to in their futures and their goals and all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, that's why I coach. 1,000% is because I believe that building people up and building those relationships and doing that is going to outweigh the wins and losses at the end of the day. Do I want to win? Yes. Am I super competitive? Absolutely. But going to weddings of players that I coached 10 years ago, getting text messages that they are pregnant and expecting, that stuff to me is so much more fulfilling than remembering a win 10 years ago. And that's just, I have grown a lot. My mom even told me this morning that that's just a sign of maturity, Shannon. I was like, thank you, Mom. But I just think that there was a point where I was stuck in the wins and losses, and both as a player and when I first got into coaching. And the relationships were always important, but that switch has flipped for me, and it's not even comparable anymore. Like the building the bonds and the strengthening the off the field, the culture, those kinds of things.
Shannon Pivovar spent 5 years at the University of Sioux Falls as a head coach. Her record was just under 500. But like at USD, the conditions compared to the competition at their level for the University of Sioux Falls, and I think at least those who were at USF for the 5 years she was the head coach would agree, they're playing home games at Sherman Park, a public field facility here in Sioux Falls. They don't have their own softball field or stadium like Augustana 2 blocks away does. Augustana, the national championship and multiple times over Northern Sun Conference champion under Greta Melstad. I would say she made some pretty good chicken salad out of chicken feed considering the resources at USF. And by the way, there was no public reason given why Shannon Pivovar lost her job at USF. But she immediately got the job at USD, and look what that turned into. Arguably the Coyotes' 2 best years in the Summit League were these last 2 years where she was the associate head coach. And clearly she connects well with her players. And that, in the public eye, from a PR standpoint, that would be a really nice thing for John Schemmel to do. But as we've learned already, and I respect this, Schemmel goes to the beat of his own drum. He's not afraid to make unpopular decisions. The Eric Peterson decision to not renew his contract, and which makes Petey, basically a lame duck this year, and he knows it. He's got to earn it. He's got to earn a new contract. Schemmel didn't hire Petey. Schemmel did not hire Robert Wagner. He's not afraid to make decisions that might be unpopular. And so we'll see. if he makes what everybody would be with, which we'd perceive to be the popular and a good hire, or if he's going to go outside the nest. Melstead obviously would be an excellent candidate. She told us a year ago on Happy Hour she's turned down jobs. She's been at Augustana for 2 decades now. She probably has been in the mix for past South Dakota State hirings and probably been offered and probably turned them down. And at this point in her career, with a teenage son that's playing a lot of hockey here in Sioux Falls, she want to go to Vermilion just to go up a level to Division I when Augustana, what she has built with the Vikings, are just an absolute force, especially in the North Country in Division II softball. Good question. We don't even know if she'll apply. We don't even know if she will be offered. But as Matt Zimmer wrote, the first 2 coaches that come to mind for all of us for this development would be Shannon Pivovar and Greta Melstead. I'm not going to sit here and say I agree or disagree with John Schemmel's decision. I don't know the day-to-day inner workings of the USD softball program. Let's be honest. Me and most media in this market, in this state, haven't covered much USD softball. They have normally been a below 500 or around 500 program, and they've never reached the NCAA tournament. So this was easily, their biggest moment, and it came out of nowhere. They were 10-29-1. It wasn't looking good. They were 16-33-1 going into the Summit League tournament. And they were the number 4 seed out of 6 teams. They had to win a play-in game for the Summit League tournament just to get into the double elimination rounds. So it was not an excellent season at USD until they ripped off 4 wins in 5 days, 2 over number 1 Omaha, and then boom, they started believing in themselves. And listen to the interview with Coach Piv about how Wagner, Piv, other coaches, mental sports psychology coaches, Piv talked about that. I mean, it's an incredible story of never giving up, believing in yourself, and then going out there and actually doing things you never thought that were possible. Both Wagner and Shannon Pivovar deserve a bunch of credit for that. And if this is it for Wagner, then what a way to go out. What a way to go out as USD softball coach. And maybe this wasn't the case 2 weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago before the Summit League tournament started. But he left the program in a better spot than when he inherited it 10 years ago. And again, I've read to you the challenges facility-wise and otherwise that they have plowed through it. And by all accounts, this man, you would think, comes from sunnier places, much bigger programs, the Pac-12, Washington, which is now in the Big Ten, Arizona State, a baseball and safeball hub for obvious reasons, because it's warm there. And so they've got great baseball and softball players up the wazoo. And he came to the smallest Division I town in America, and it was hard. And his record was not great. He gutted it out for 10 years and said he loved it here. So just a tip of the cap to a former U.S. Marine, a thank you for your service for our country and for USD softball. And it will be really intriguing to see what's next for that program. What a day. On with the show.
It's still Happy Hour with John Gaskins, so go ahead, have another.
Well, it was big news in college athletics a couple weeks ago that a lot of people hated. The NCAA tournament field expanding to 76. The purists hate it. Gives more teams an opportunity, and we can put on our boxing gloves and decide if that helps out mid-majors like the Jackrabbits and the Coyotes or not. And we talked about that here on Happy Hour last week. But the new thing is, the good thing is, the exciting thing is, maybe Sioux Falls can be that second site to host the opening round games, the play-in games, what we currently known as the Dayton Games, that take shape on Tuesday and Wednesday before the Field of 64 and the national holiday convenes on that Thursday and Friday every year. And the question is, okay, maybe Sioux Falls popped up on a couple people's lists about this, but is Sioux Falls going after it? The answer I got on Friday from a very good source was yes. And that source is Jerry Pileshi. He's the project director for Sioux Falls Sports Authority. You also know him as the voice of the University of South Dakota women's basketball team. He joined us on March 30th to chat about the Yotes' great run through the WNIT, but also about these sort of things. Sioux Falls hosting all kinds of big events in the NCAA, all sports, and beyond. And so we thought we'd get him back on here today, now that the expansion to 76 is official and starting next March. So first of all, thanks for joining us, Jerry P. The summertime is bidding time on NCAA events in the future that you're hoping to bring to Sioux Falls, so we should have more updates. But go ahead, confirm on the record for us. Give us a viral moment here. Is Sioux Falls eagerly, aggressively seeking to be that second host city?
Absolutely. With something that as soon as when the NCAA and the committee were talking about expanding the tournament that we had our eye on. And truth be told, if you go back over the course of the years, the first four in itself has been something that Sioux Falls has always kept their eye on in terms of, is there a way to pull this out of Dayton? Is there a way that you can have this opportunity in Sioux Falls? And that has never come to fruition. And it's become pretty clear with the NCAA that Dayton is a venue that is full out locked in, a venue in a city that is locked in permanently for that first four in the opening round. And even with the bid specs that have come out for the expanded tournament, it has mentioned that it's going to stay in Dayton, and then they would like to find another city that is not in the same time zone as Dayton, which happens to be Eastern time zone, so that they're exploring other cities. So for us, why wouldn't we? I think that's the biggest question, is why wouldn't we take an opportunity and take a stab at trying to get this into Sioux Falls? Because ultimately for us, it's always been one of those questions of everybody going, what's it going to take to get an NCAA tournament here for men's basketball? This could be it. This really could be our moment to try to do that. Now, a lot of things have to come together, of course, and we're going to do our due diligence to make sure that we put a strong bid forward to do it and to get it. But, the best thing we can do is throw our hat out there and say, come to Sioux Falls.
Why could this be it? Why is there a better chance for Sioux Falls to get this than in the past with one of those Field of 64 opening weekends?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest keys here, John, is that the last time that we talked, you mentioned at the end of March, brought up kind of the time zone difference for the central time zone and how competitive that is. So if you look at this across the landscape of what the central time zone even is, you're looking at Chicago, you're looking at Minneapolis, Omaha, Kansas City, New Orleans, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. A lot of the heavy hitter cities are within the central time zone. So that does make it hard to compete when you're talking about venues that have 18 to 22,000 seats. And we don't have that here in Sioux Falls. So that, that's a little bit harder there too. But for an opening round, you start looking across the landscape, and we don't know this from the NCAA. We don't have any indication. We just have off of what the bid specs show. But you just start thinking in the sense of the tournament in itself, where would the best possible fit for the opening round be? And is it a city like a Minneapolis? Is it a city like Des Moines, Chicago, who already has what would be the first, second round now, and they're normalized into that Thursday, Saturday, or that Friday, Sunday window? Or is it a city like Sioux Falls and a city like Dayton, in a sense, that really would embrace the opening round? And maybe it's not, an 18,000 seat venue. Maybe it's a little bit smaller. Maybe it's a city and a community that rallies around basketball that would come out for whoever's playing in it, whether it's a Texas that's an 11 seed that gets sent to an opening round, or maybe it's one of the mid-major schools that a city can kind of cheer for and get around. And for us, we're not unfamiliar with mid-major basketball. So I think that's another key component of this, is that part of the expanded bracket is that, mid-majors are probably going to be in the opening round. So why not find a city that kind of embraces that? And I think that's one of the key areas for us when we're looking at this, and thinking we have a pretty good, opportunity to at least put a good foot forward and to try to, take a stab at this, is because this is a community that truly embraces basketball. You look at what they have done with the Sanford Pentagon, with the Division I games over the course of the years, and the teams that have come here, and with the Summit League tournament, how that turnout is every single year as well. This is a great basketball community, and for us, we're trying to put that in front of the NCAA and get them to bring that here.
So, I mean, you just went through all the reasons why Sioux Falls has a hard time competing for those opening round games in Central Time Zone. Minneapolis, Chicago, Kansas City, Omaha's had it. Des Moines has had it. They're all bigger. They all have bigger arenas. Even Birmingham, New Orleans, Tulsa, all in the Central Time Zone. And then when you look at similar sized cities to Sioux Falls, like the closest thing, period, would be, as far as I've been able to tell through research, Boise and Spokane. Those cities are just both barely bigger than Sioux Falls. Spokane is a much bigger metro, but it's about the same sized city proper, and their arenas are about the same size. You've said you got to have 12,000 seats. The Denny has just barely that for basketball. So do Spokane and Boise. They've gotten some advantages in the past by being out in the Western time zone, obviously, for those late night games, right? That's partly why they've gotten it. And they've done it before. And when you do it before, they come back. That sets up this, for these sort of play-in games. For one, I wonder if those cities would want play-in games when they've already had field a round of 64 and round of 32 games in the past. And then I look at a list that says Albuquerque, Boise, Omaha, Spokane, Wichita. That's just a Sports Illustrated article. 5 possible sites. All these places have already done it. So I wonder if they would want to just keep doing that every few years instead of the play-ins every year. Looking at Dayton versus Sioux Falls, Dayton's arena is just over 13,000, not much bigger. The city's much bigger than Sioux Falls. But I just thought I'd get all that information for people's sake. You don't know what Spokane and Boise and Albuquerque and cities like those are thinking. What kind of information would you or do you have from the NCAA about Sioux Falls' chances of ever getting this?
So really not a lot of indication in terms of what it would take, because anytime we put a bid in for any event, it's not like we get a list back as to here's the reasons why you were given the bid, here's the reasons why you weren't given the bid. So a lot of it for us is kind of just being able to put our best foot forward. We don't know what other cities are going to be bidding on it. We don't know who else is looking at it. We don't know if a Minneapolis thinks that, the opening round wouldn't necessarily fit them. It won't for next year because Minneapolis is actually a first, second round host along with Omaha, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think the regional finals in Kansas City. So there is a upper Midwest stronghold for next year's tournament, if I'm not mistaken on that anyway. But in terms of the outlook on this, John, I think is when you look at a comparison to that of a Dayton, when you look at some of the other cities that might be right in that same realm, it just opens up that door of that possibility because, I think there is a little bit of that of, whether, I don't know if it's a stigma. For me, I love the idea of expanding the tournament because I thought it would open the door to something like this. And I think we'll take a really good shot at it. But you're also talking about expanding that group of first 4 to 24, and that's 12 teams that you have to, house and put into hotels and working with that space too. So from our understanding with the bid specs is that it's looking like they want 2 venues, not necessarily 3 or 4. So it's going to be Dayton and one other, at least from the way that everything reads to us. So in terms of the bid and all those in the placement around those lines, we just got the information last week. So a lot of it right now is just kind of checking the boxes, check venue, hotels, try to line everything up because once this goes, once the bid gets put in, it's just in their hands and they're going to have to make a quick decision. And you'd be blinking and all of a sudden it's March of 2027 and you're going, okay, here we go. So a lot of it for us is once we now have the information as to kind of what they're looking for, we're just lining everything up.
Okay. You kind of hinted at it because, again, we're just seeking information for people to know what this involves. The opening round is now going to feature, as you said, 24 teams. It has been featuring how many? 8, I think. It's been 8 in Dayton with 4 games, 2 nights. which means, well, now we're looking at 24 teams and 12 in each of the two cities. So, as you said, Sioux Falls would have 12, and and two venues. I'll start with this. Which would be the second venue? I'm guessing the Pentagon.
No. What I meant by two venues is Dayton being one.
Oh,
Dayton being
okay.
one city, and then they're looking for a second city.
Okay.
So
All
two
right,
different venues to host the full 24 opening round.
Okay. So all the games would be at the Denny. We would have 6 games, and I'm guessing 3 games each day, Tuesday and Wednesday. Would that be it?
Correct.
Okay. 12 teams. Last time we chatted about the possibility of Sioux Falls hosting men's tournaments, the round of 64 and 32 games. You said now we're looking into hotels and these teams needing 4,000 square feet by NCAA requirements of meeting space. They have meetings, and I'm sure they simulate basketball with the space that they use. You need full service hotels. Canopy has been added to the list. It's up and running now over there by the Steel District downtown. In your mind, to your knowledge, to host 12 teams, does Sioux Falls have the ample hotel space needed?
I think it's one of those situations here where it depends on what the NCAA and the committee ultimately is wanting to balance, right? So we talk about opportunity of being that basketball type of community that's going to come out and support. We know that. So for us, the hotels, we have wonderful hotels and great hotels. It's just a matter of how do you split everything up and in terms of what the NCAA is looking for with their requirements. And I think for the opening round and the way that it's structured, where you would have teams playing on Tuesday and on Wednesday, you wouldn't necessarily have 12 teams collectively all together all at once, taking up all the rooms necessarily. I think there's an opportunity there to where we could put something together to make it work. It's a little bit different than when you get into that conversation, that first, second round, because of course they're looking for that bigger venue, bigger city. It's been a little bit harder to take that down away from a city like a Minneapolis or that of a Kansas City, so on and so forth, or a New Orleans. But for this, in an opening round, when you do like a city comparison to that of like a Dayton, the way it looks like we would have a good opportunity, even with the hotels and the configurations of how we can, host a team. I think there's some wiggle room on this in terms of an opening round. I don't know that for sure. The NCAA doesn't give us, again, any form of guidance on that. So I'm hoping it's not just a dream in the sense of that way, John. But I do think in comparison of like looking at cities, looking at a Dayton, potentially even going and looking at Spokane, you look at some of the hotels that are kind of offered around them, it's not super far off. And again, we have wonderful hotels that are up to the challenge and they know what to do in terms of hosting teams. You can ask some of the teams that come in about their experience, whether it's at the downtown Holiday Inn or the Hilton Canopy and the other great hotels that we do have here. We know how to run sporting events and we know how to house them and take care of them. So for us, it's just a matter of kind of pushing that idea forward. And again, a lot of it, I think for us too, is the venue. I think the Denny Sanford Premier Center for a market our size is just phenomenal. You can look at other venues that have hosted different tournaments, whether it's basketball, hockey, so on and so forth. The Denny looks great on TV. It really does. So for us, if showcasing that out too, I think that could be a potential big selling point.
Yeah, I have little doubt that place would be full or close to full for these games, simply knowing things like the Sanford International, some of the biggest crowds, if not the biggest crowds, that those Champions Tour golfers see every year in our quote-unquote tiny city, because people are just excited to have these sort of events here and support them. And so when let me ask you this. You do have a relationship with people within the NCAA that obviously you've worked with in the NCAA women's hoops about 8 or 10 years ago. The NCAA men's hockey, Division II wrestling, those were both in town, and hockey for the second time. NCAA Division II men's championships for basketball a couple of years back there, late 2010s. What kinds of things do they tell you, or did they tell you last when they were in town for wrestling this time around and hockey? That what the feedback that you have gotten from NCAA officials, what do they tell you?
That everybody that's been here absolutely loves it, and that's truly how everything has come off. We've hosted 5 NCAA events since March of 2024. We had the 2024 men's ice hockey regional. We had the 2024 women's volleyball Division II championship. Excuse me. In 2025, we had the return of the Division II women's volleyball championship. And here in 2026, we had the Division II men's wrestling championship, and then the 2026 men's ice hockey regional again. So we've had 5 NCAA events even over the last 2 years. And for volleyball, I always go back to this one. I know for Division II and the way that this all came about is they had a venue conflict for 2025. When we concluded 2024, we found out about that, and we were with the committee and taking them for just a post-tournament dinner and had a little conversation there, not necessarily with our NCAA rep who had to kind of shield her ears for a moment, but the committee was like, we don't have a place for next year, and said, hey, if you enjoyed the experience, let's talk about next year. And that's how we got it back for 2025. So the relationships that we have built with the NCAA have been very strong. I know the men's ice hockey in the regional that have been here in 24 and 26, they have been just really excited about having it in Sioux Falls. They love the venue. That's the same with Division II wrestling. The Division II wrestling committee and even the person we work with the NCAA just over the moon in terms of what the facility is like and how they're treated here. And the attendance has been strong across the board for all of our events that have taken place here. So all the feedback that we tend to get from the NCAA, John, is once they're here, it's wonderful and it's awesome. And, you hope that continues to pay off here into the future. I know we've talked a lot about basketball, but it's also bid portal season for all of those other events here in the future. And we're going to be putting in those bids as well coming up. So we're going to be very bid heavy, and we hope that our past experiences, of course, pay off into the future, because we always talk about how the events that we're doing is our addition for the next one.
Yeah. What events are you putting bids in for, and when are you submitting everything?
So the bid portal will open up here this summer, and then the official bids have to be placed in by the fall. They will announce the winners sometime in the spring, from what it sounds like, from next year. The events that we're looking at, of course, are the ones that you would think opening round for Division I men's basketball being one that everybody has been looking at. Sorry, excuse me. And then, the Division II men's and women's basketball, we'd love to have that back in Sioux Falls. I was here, a little while ago. They've kind of moved that to Evansville for the last few years, but they get that back out onto the road. It'd be really cool to have that back here in Sioux Falls. So, of course, we're keeping an eye on that one. We're looking at Division II volleyball again. They love their experience at the Sanford Pentagon, so hopefully that's something that we can continue down the road. Division II wrestling, I want to, same thing with them. They love their experience with the Denny Sanford Premier Center and being in Sioux Falls, so we'll look at that as well. So a lot of this right now, John, is we take these events and you lay them out on a big piece of paper and the dates in which that they want to host their tournament. We go to the venues, we have to go to the hotels. So right now it's a lot of information gathering, but the men's ice hockey regional is a big one too. I think that is one that if we can have that, if the NCAA would let us have it every single year, I think we would gladly take it. Love that event. It's so much fun. It's a great showcase for Sioux Falls. It looks big time too on TV. So I think that is one that we for sure are going to be looking at too, is the men's ice hockey regional.
For what year? Do you know?
These years would be for 29, 30, and 31.
Okay. We've had D1 women's basketball a while back. I think were those regional finals when we had them?
That was a regional, yes.
Yeah, like to go to the Final Four to determine who's going to the Final Four. But they do it a different way now, correct? I mean, is that
so
what kind of are we going to bid for D1 women's basketball, or is that just kind of not possible? But because
it's something we're going to take a look at in terms of the dates and where they sit too, and we'll definitely take a look at it in the sense of the regional. The biggest thing there, John, is that they switched that, and Gino Oriem actually made comment on it during the course of this women's basketball tournament this year, is that what they did was they split the regional sites from 4 down to 2. And by doing that, now you're going back to that same type of conversation of having the region finals in 2 separate cities instead of the 4. So you're taking on those extra teams into that city. So for us, like if the region final was 4 teams, I think that works out again. But I think there's, again, when you're looking at a region final having, 2 sets of 4 again with 8 total, and they're looking at bigger cities, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'm not saying it's a no-go. I'm not saying that there's no chance. We'll definitely look at it. We're definitely going to throw our hat into the ring too in terms of the dates line up and if everything's on board. So it's not out of the question, but that change in itself made that a little bit more difficult in every bid cycle we've been in looking at that event. Because that's one that a lot of people do ask me about is what about the women's regional that was here? It was very much a success. I mean, look at Dawn Staley bringing back her teams multiple times over to Sioux Falls after coming to Sioux Falls. Yes. She's one that in terms of the opening round, I'd love to call her up and say, hey, you want to send a little letter for us and talk about your experience here? Might not be a bad idea. But it's those type of experiences and people that you want to lean on.
So, I mean, are the women having these opening rounds of 24 teams, 12 games, like the men are?
From our understanding is that they're expanding both, but I believe the women's side, we haven't seen anything in terms of a similar setup in the way that the men are doing it. So I'm under the impression that it's going to just stay with top seeds until they get to that regional final.
Yeah, like top seeds, home venues. Yeah,
correct.
Like the top 16 or so. Yeah. You've kind of hinted at it, but what all do you submit? Like information about hotels, capacity. Like what information do you gather and then specifically submit to get your bid?
Yeah, it all starts, of course, with the venue in itself, because you have to show them it has the capacity, it has the space that is needed, it has the open dates that is needed as well. And then from there, you look at hotels. You kind of throw everything out there in terms of what you're able to do in terms of hotels and how you would set up teams and whether they have the requirements that the NCAA is looking for as well, and letters of support from around the community and from around the state, and really in those type of ways, trying to just help make your bid stand out, right? So we're always looking at that type of stuff. So what happens is the NCAA sends out these bid specs, and it's like 30 pages long of all the different things that you have to basically check off and say, yeah, we have this. And some of it can be like, some of it, John, can be as easy as just like AV setup inside the Premier Center, let's just say, right? Okay. Yeah, we've hosted televised events in there before. We have that. We know that. And we know the venue has that. So a lot of it is just kind of checking the boxes and then trying to figure out and positioning yourself in a way to make yourself stand out.
Okay. What else is going on as far beyond the scope of NCAA events, the things that you've really got cooking right now for the Sioux Falls Sports Authority, either events you already have that you're getting ready for or also want to bring to Sioux Falls?
Yeah, right now, in terms of outside of just getting ready for the bids and the NCAA, we're working on our Sioux Falls Marathon, which is coming up in September. So a lot of the logistics are already started with that and the operations, lining up different groups, volunteer groups to help us within the course of the route at the finish line, meeting with the city and going over the route of whether anything has to change because of construction. We all love Orange Barrel season. So we work with them very closely to make sure that
one of the 2 seasons we have in South Dakota.
Right. So surprisingly enough, John, it does affect the marathon sometimes. And if that happens, then you have to reroute and you have to recertify everything with being a Boston qualifier. So we're hoping we can avoid that this year and continue on with the route that we have had. So we're working on that right now and getting ready for that. That, again, will be in September. We're excited for that. We're always excited for the Sioux Falls Marathon. That brings in over 2,200 runners, and they come from all over the country. Last year, we had 48 out of the 50 states represented. I'm hoping to get to 50 this year. I just need a couple people from Wyoming to come on over and one from Connecticut. We'll have all 50 all done. Some international runners we have signed up already, too, from Canada. So it's always fun to see who comes in to Sioux Falls for the Sioux Falls Marathon, and another event where we really like to showcase the city and really show what the city can do and how supportive it can be. So we're working on that, and in the not so far future, I guess, we also have our Sioux Falls Boxing Classic that is taking place in January. We're getting ready and starting looking at that event and seeing what we could potentially do with that and potentially making it bigger. So I'm going to leave that one a little quiet for now. We're still in the stages of that, in the dream stages of what we could potentially do with that. But the Sioux Falls Boxing Classic is heavily on our radar for a January event. And I don't usually wish for January to get here so quick, but for that event, I do.
The marathon is Sunday, September 20th. And are you guys part of bringing MMA events to Sioux Falls?
No,
you're not.
MMA
okay.
is Sanford Sports. Pentagon has been working with LFA and Bellator. They have been the ones doing that.
Okay. And remind us again, we had a chat about Boys State basketball venues. Do not approach Jerry P. about the Denny not hosting Boys State basketball this past year. You talk to the folks at the Denny. To what kind of involvement does Sioux Falls Sports Authority have with bringing either boys or girls state basketball tournaments into Sioux Falls? And what's the near future looking like for that?
We don't. That is done through the Activities Association and the Denny Sanford Premier Center.
There you go. Simple as that. You're not here to answer that. And Sanford International, is that a Sioux Falls Sports Authority thing?
That is a Sanford Sports.
Okay. There we go. So we'll go to that. Now I'll follow up with, do you bring up the Sanford International and its popularity, the showcasing of Sioux Falls, chance on national TV on the Golf Channel? Is that ever part of conversations or submissions you have with the NCAA as part of, hey, look what we do at this event?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is really good, John, is that the entire city, we work really well together. So in terms of what we are always looking for, we, of course, have a very good relationship with Sanford Health and Sanford Sports. The chairman of our board is Steve Young, who's the president of Sanford Sports. So we work very closely with them in a lot of different events and keys. And truth be told, I think opening round wise, they're looking for practice space venues, and they're always looking for different areas for teams to warm up, so on and so forth. What better place than the Sanford Pentagon, right? Yeah, some of these teams may have already been there before. So, of course, we'd be reaching out to Jesse and his crew to see if that would be an open idea and possibility for potential practice sites, right? So we work very closely with everybody, and that's the beautiful part of this city. And what this is that we may all have kind of separate entities in terms of what we do, but collectively together, we really make this place blossom and shine. So I always look at it as opportunities for us to work together, and we always find a way to do so. And it's awesome and amazing. And to see what this city has done, I go back to it, John. I grew up here, and to see this town go from, having the sports in which we had, I've always grown up going to Skyforce games, and then, the Stampede started. That was always fun. We had the Storm in town. We didn't have NCAA events, right? So to see that grow from nothing to where we're at today, where we've had 5 in the last 2 years, which is remarkable for really a city our size, to see that and the different opportunities to have the Sanford International here, and to have a big tennis tournament that's here as well through Sanford Sports. Like, this place is a hotbed for sports, and it's what helps makes this community what it is. I love Sioux Falls, and anything I can do to make Sioux Falls an even better place, like, I'm going for it, which is a big part of the reason I love my job here, and a big part of the reason why when this came out about expanding of the tournament, Thomas and I really looked at each other and we said, let's go. Let's go for this and see if we can get it here. So we're dreaming, and we're going to shoot for the stars, man.
They hired the right guy. Congratulations on all the work you've done and all the things you've helped bring to our city to this point. And good luck with the bids. And maybe I'll send you a T-shirt that says, "We're not responsible for state basketball."
I don't mind having the conversation, though. I do love it. It's just, I get it. It was a little different this year. It was a little bit more difficult just with the calendar in March, right? But hey, we're all fighting for space, right? So it's, but ultimately, yeah, everything will work out, and we'll have boys basketball back inside the Denny here soon.
Yeah. Not my job. That was a slogan or a commercial somewhere, right? Not my job. Jerry P, appreciate it. Thanks as always. Jerry Pileski, Project Director, Sioux Falls Sports Authority. For video producer Cordell Wright, I'm John. Happy hour and cheers.
It's still happy hour with John Gaskins. This round's on me.
To paraphrase the great philosopher Dr. Seuss, don't be sad it's over. Be happy it happened. But are we really? Are we really sad that the Minnesota Timberwolves season is over, considering the destruction from games 5 and 6, 29 and 30-point blowout losses to knock the Wolves out of the playoffs to end the season? And are we really happy it happened? I mean, it was awesome to see the Minnesota Timberwolves go on another playoff run, win 49 games, take down their first round opponent, who it's so long ago now because the NBA playoffs take so long that I can't even remember. Who did we go see the Wolves beat, Johnny Ops, in Minneapolis in game 3? The Nuggets. That's right. Yeah. Hey, at least they beat the Nuggets in the playoffs again. Those are experiences we can't take back. But, man, there's been, I don't know if misery is the word to use, but there's been a lot has happened since Friday night when we were all excited to watch the Wolves at Orion Pub and then watch them lose by 30 at home to the Spurs. So this is probably our last Timberwolves talk for a while, unless some major moves are made and we want to talk about them, which just might happen considering the clarity that was given in those last 2 losses to the Spurs. So welcome in once again here on Happy Hour. Die-hard Wolves fans, our guys, Chris Johnson, University of Sioux Falls basketball coach, and Johnny Oppold, the co-owner of the Orion Pub downtown, who shared the booth with me. We encouraged Chris to come, had a booth and everything. But, all it ended up, it was fun for about 30 seconds. And then imagine, Chris, a room full of pissed off Wolves fans for about 2 hours.
Yeah, I really missed out on that one. Tough. It was a tough way to go out. I think, again, it just goes back to their immaturity. It got hard real fast. They didn't play well to start the game for basically all but the first game of the series. And all you need to know about whether they think they can compete with the Spurs is the reaction once they got down. And they were ready to go home. And
they were.
Now they made a little run. Home. They cut it from 29 now I think down to like 15 or something like that. One time. It's the NBA. If you wait long enough, there'll be a run one way or the other. But overall, I think it reinforced it last night watching that game. They're just not on the same level as those other 2 teams. And I'm here to tell you, as a lifelong Minnesota sports fan, that's okay. They're not there yet. And they might never get there, but man, they're a lot closer than they were when I was growing up and they were winning 20 games every year. And Pooh Richardson was there, and, Felton and your best player one of your best players was Sam Mitchell. Hey man, this is good. This is fun. Yeah. People care in the off season about what they're going to do. It's not about, and they actually have a chance to add pieces probably through trade, but I don't think, I saw a poll yesterday where the top 10 teams that free agents and people traded didn't want to go to, and the Wolves weren't on it for the first time ever that poll's ever gone out to players. They weren't on it because people wouldn't mind playing with Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, and the ownership seems to be pretty solid, a little flamboyant for me, but are spending the money and doing the right things and hiring the right people, and Tim Conley and that. So I'm going to enjoy it, even if it's frustrating.
Sure. Thank you. It's positive there's positive Phil and positive Pat over there at Score North.
Well, you know me, super positive guy.
We have positive Chris here today. I love it to start us. Well, look, before we get to Johnny Ops, just a lot has happened since Friday. We're taping this on Tuesday morning. Some cryptic remarks from Anthony Edwards, and Julius Randle didn't do his exit interview, and Chris Finch kind of kind of admitted, from what I could read from the quotes, that perhaps going away from Mike Conley as the starting point guard may have turned out to be not the best idea. We could talk about all this and where things are going, what they need, who they might get to make this, again, a conference finals team. And more so, can they ever get to the NBA finals, considering how the Spurs and OKC have so many awesome young players. They're well coached. It's going to be hard, but we at least got the cornerstone, Anthony Edwards. But, John, I'll say this. Chris kind of alluded to it. I thought getting blown the F out those last two games, probably a good thing in the sense of it provided so much clarity. They're not there. They're not good enough. They might not even be close. Things need to happen. If they lose close, then we just say, hey, it was just the health. It was just the injuries. It was just Ant being with two bad knees. And we all know that wasn't just it, but now we know there's so much more to it. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I wouldn't say they're not close. I would say that they're close. They're just not where they need to be. The health was definitely a thing. I mean, part of it is like I watch other teams and how much they suck. I mean, it looks like OKC and the Spurs. I mean, those are the teams. I mean, I look at the East and I'm like, those teams are, awful. So, I don't think the Wolves are too far off. I think part of their problem is, immaturity, like championship habits. I would like to see them work their way through a season the way they did 2 years ago when they were hungry and, they were competing for that number one seed. Like, if they had the talent to do that then, like, they should be close now. Because, I mean, these guys have had a couple years to add to their game. I think part of the problem with the Wolves is like making two Western Conference Finals. These guys were like expecting to kind of like rest on their laurels, and I think having them be hungry is good. It would be nice to see. One thing that I don't like about the team that I think needs to improve is I think Tim Connolly doesn't do the best job at selling high on guys and getting out when he should. Like Julius Randle, Naz Reid should be starting. I mean, 100%. Rudy Gobert, like how many years are we going to keep running this guy out there? He's great, but he's old. And it's just like, you got to trade some of these guys while there's still value. That's the one thing I worry about is like, they have this window and now you got a Gobert that you're not going to get what you need to back from him. I don't think. You might have to package Randall and Gobert together, but they're both old. So it makes it kind of difficult. I think that they can retool pretty quick, but I think pace has to be part of the ingredient. And playing with pace is not Rudy Gobert. It's not Julius Randle. You need guys who can run. I'd like to see him get younger at some of those spots, even if it means rolling with somebody who's not quite ready yet in Baron J or something, and then maybe having a backup center that's like we saw with what was it, Kispert or whatever, the guy for the Spurs. What was the guy for the Spurs, the backup?
Luke Cornett.
There you go. Kispert's a 3-point guy. Getting some sort of veteran backup that can come in and spell the rookie when he gets into foul trouble. But that's the other thing too with like Finch is like I'd like to see him play the young guys just a little bit more. I mean, I know that's a constant critique of his, but it's like it feels like we've got some guys in like TSJ and Baron J and some of these guys, but like I don't know, it takes forever to develop these guys, and if you look at the guys that have developed in this system, guys like Naz Reid, like they were getting some tick when they were young, and I know it's kind of like a win now team, but you're going to keep leaning on Mike Conley. When I heard him say that, like, Mike Conley, we shouldn't have went away from him as the starter. It's like, Mike Conley is old, man. He's like my age, you know, and you can't be 40 and be a starting point guard on a freaking championship basketball team. I'm sorry. So some of that stuff, I don't know. I just get kind of disappointed with the way they think sometimes, because it's like you look at where they were 2 years ago and you look at them now, and it's like the NBA has changed so much in those 2 years. You know, they were built to beat Denver, and they did that, but Denver clearly is not that great anymore. So you got to be evolving, and it doesn't feel like they're doing it quick enough.
Okay, I'll let Chris respond to that. I do want to interject. I just want to clarify the Finch remarks. You know, this is from the Star Tribune, Chris Hine. Finch thought that by starting Dante DiVincenzo, he would get the best version of him. Proved correct, by the way. 12 points a game, 38% from three, best plus-minus rating of regular contributors on the team. He affected winning in a positive way, and I think the Wolves felt his loss in the series against the Spurs, but he wasn't a true point guard, and Fitch termed it in his end-of-season press conference, a day after the season was over, that the decision to start DiVincenzo a point guard created some original sin, quote, flipping Ant to the point guard spot just on the eve of the season. It certainly helped with Dante, but it probably didn't put everybody in the best position there, Ant included. So he didn't exactly say we should have had Mike Conley as the point guard, but perhaps I think what he's saying is it might have been better to have a true point guard instead of Anthony Edwards, because as we saw, Ant taking the ball at the floor, very ineffective, unhealthy and hurt, right? Because he would do it slowly, and that affected pace that John thought the Wolves needed more of. So just want to clear it up. He didn't say we should have had Mike Conley as the starting point guard this year. I'll let Chris go.
I think they tried. I don't think you can flip things as easily because people have to want what you have. Now, if I'm an average NBA team right now that wants to make the playoffs or, you know, get there, I trade for Rudy Gobert all day long. He is an absolute game changer in the regular season for you to win games. You know, can he be the playoff guy? It doesn't look like it versus Chet Holmgren and Wemby. Guess what? There aren't a lot of great matchups for those two guys. Those guys are unicorns. I think where he swung and missed, and I think this is the thing that people get frustrated with GMs about. Like, they're never going to bat 1,000. They can't get everyone right. They missed on Rob Dillingham, and that is the issue because they gave up a lot to get him. He was the 8th pick in the draft, and he can't play. And so they traded him, and honestly, I thought that was a great trade to get Io for what they use him for. But Rob Dillingham, by this time, I guarantee you the Wolves thought he would be their starting point guard. And he's unplayable. I mean, I know he had a couple good games right away when he went to Chicago, but if you look, he was pretty bad after that. And Chicago fans were all up in arms about, well, what's with this guy? Well, yeah, there's a reason the Wolves let go of him. So I think, yes, I think you have to have a point guard, but they probably can't fix all the problems. Like, you just don't have enough resources to go get a really good point guard and trade for Giannis. And if you're going to call these guys old, Giannis is older than all of them and just as injury prone and can't shoot and seems like might be a bit of a prima donna, according to Miles Turner. He never showed up for meetings and film and this and that. But I am in the camp of this. I want my teams that I root for to swing big, and let's try it. Because what they have right now isn't going to get them to an NBA final. Maybe Giannis does. And if it doesn't, all right, well, we had 4 or 5 really fun years of the Wolves, and you might have to start over. And you might have to start over without Ant if this next pivot doesn't work. Because he's been loyal, but how long is that going to happen? He's 24, I think. I think you have a window of about 3 or 4 years to make another pivot.
Yeah, clock's ticking is part of the issue. So it's like the time is now.
Yeah, that's partly where some of his remarks came in and his actions at the end of the game. I think I think John and I had both exited. Oops, we admit it. We didn't stay to the end of that game at the Orion Pub on Friday.
No.
We weren't alone in the mass exodus. But in the waning minutes of the game against the Spurs that ended the season, Edwards went over to the Spurs. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. Went over to the Spurs bench and congratulated the guys. And
8 minutes left.
8 minutes left. That was translated by some as a message to his teammates and coaches that, hey, you've embarrassed me, I'll embarrass you.
I don't buy that. I don't buy
that's
that.
That's a strong accusation.
I think Finch checked him out for the. I mean, when you check out the star player with 8 minutes left in a 30-point blowout, you're waving the white flag.
Yeah.
So he went to shake hands because after the game he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, get the hell out of here.
I didn't love it, right? Like as a coach, I don't love the optics of it, but I think people are making a big deal about nothing.
Okay.
That's a simple, hey, don't do that again. Like let's handle that differently. But that is not him saying I'm out of here or any of that. Like that is an immature dude who probably grew up watching Isaiah Thomas walk over and do it to somebody else, or Michael Jordan. And I say those two on purpose because those two wouldn't shake hands.
Of course, the most famous walkout was, the Pistons had won back-to-back world titles with the bad boy squad in 89 and 90. And then the Bulls finally. Yeah.
I should have used the Kevin McHale, Isaiah Thomas at half court as McHale's walking off the floor with 2 minutes left, hugging each other and dapping each other up. Like,
okay.
I don't love the way it looks, but it's seriously a non-issue. The issue on this team is that no one is willing to hold Julius Randle and his immaturity and his babiness and his moodiness, which they talked about. I mean, who do you think Jaden was talking to? Who do you think, or Nas and Jaden? That's the issue, and I get it. Like, it's so easy as a college coach for me to sit here and be like, why don't you hold him accountable? Sit him down. Well, I'm here to tell you, in the NBA, the guy who's making $30 million a year has a lot more power than the coach who's making $4 million. And that is a slippery slope. And if you take him out, then you get absolutely nothing. Can you win when you're down to 7 guys and now you're not getting anything from him? I wish I would have been able to watch and see. I wish they would have sat him down, but it's such an easy couch coach thing to say.
And what now with Julius? I mean, I agree. When I saw the headlines, saw the remarks, it feels like the players that I think Tim Conley wants back, unless he has to trade any of them to get Giannis, another topic we can keep going on with, that they don't want Julius Randle on the team anymore. And correct me if I'm wrong, does he, like the Timberwolves, not owe him as much money as they thought they did now because he performed so lowly? Where do we go? Where do we think they're going to go from here with Julius Randle?
What are they? I think he's got a year or 2 left on his contract. I think it was kind of like an under market deal too. I mean, I think he kind of took less to stay on the team. I mean, one of the things with Julius Randle that it is kind of funny is, like, he got traded here. He seems like he doesn't fit. I would say, like, his pull on the team is probably less than McDaniels and Nas, because some of those guys are viewed as like the future cornerstones of the team. Plus the fact that, like, I just think that, like, he's never really, I don't know. They like treated him with kid gloves. I think he's gone. I also think that, like, he could have been traded twice. I think when they were trying to get Kevin Durant, when they were trying to get Giannis halfway through the season, like, for some reason, when they made that trade for him and for DiVincenzo, it felt a lot like they were trying to keep DiVincenzo and they were going to flip Randle for something that made more sense, and nothing ever materialized.
Because nobody wants him. Like, that's the issue, right? Like, the word is out that he's moody and all these things. And I don't know if you guys read the Star Trib article about, as soon as the trade deadline hit, like, his play went down. The players kind of secretly saying he wasn't engaged and all that. Like, I get it, right? Like, if John Hart's talking about trading me to Alaska to a D2 in the middle of the season, like, I'm human. I'm going to feel a certain way about that. But how delusional do you have to be to feel like, well, how could they trade me for Giannis? What? Like, if John's talking to Duke about John Shire, I'm out of here, guys. Like, he's bringing him in. Like, that's part of the deal. If he can make that deal happen. I know that's a weird analogy, but like, yes, we're human and you want to give a little bit of grace because it would bother you, right? Like, he just built a house, I think, in Minneapolis and all that. Like, there are some real life things going on there. But man, to have the belief that you're untouchable for a top 3 or 4 player in the league, come on, man. Like, you got to be more professional than that. And that's the word I keep coming back to with him. Not showing up for the exit interview. And there might be a real reason, right? Like, he might have had a family thing that they don't want to talk about publicly. But if it was something they could tell us, they would. If it was a legitimate reason, they would have told us by now. So I'm leaning towards it wasn't legitimate.
No, and after how he played in that last series, like, it just looks bad. Like, you're the guy that played the work. I mean, closeout game, he scored 3 points. 3 points.
I really
supposed to be your number 2 option.
I really believe this saying, and it's kind of cheesy, but if you're gonna stand there when they pat you on the back, you better stand there when they kick you in the butt. And he could have went so far by just showing up on that dais and saying, "Hey man, I was awful. I don't know why. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't want to let my teammates and the fans down like that ever again." And everyone would have softened. Because we're human too, right? Like, a guy would have said, "Hey, I wish I would have played," but and he didn't take advantage of that, which is just dumb PR on his part.
Well, he didn't even do the interview. I mean, he's like the only Timberwolf that didn't do a postseason interview. By the way, John, he scored the first 2 points of the game. That was his only field goal. He was 1 of 8 from the field in a series where he averaged under 13 points, 1.5 assists per game. That actually feels high.
Assists?
How many turnovers?
He's the assist leader during the year.
No, I just mean, like, it seemed like he contributed so little. I can't even remember any assists that he actually made because he just, took the ball into a black hole. It felt like every time he got it when he wasn't turning it over, and he shot 34% from the field, 19% from 3. But again, what can be done? What are the odds they're going to be able to find a deal for him? It does feel like it'd be great addition by subtraction. But right now, just the binary yes or no. Do you think he'll be a Wolf next year?
I don't. I don't, and I think it's going to be really hard to trade him. But I think this. John said it earlier. Naz Reid's going to start for the Timberwolves next year. And I don't know what position. He could be 3, 4, or 5, depending on what they do. But I think they're going to lean into that. And I don't think they're going to trade Naz or Jaden unless it is something spectacular. And it's not because I think they're untouchable, because both have warts, right? Both aren't perfect players, but they're ants guys, and that does matter.
And they're developing. I think you don't know what they are just yet. And so that's something too. I think like there's much more of a chance that you see Rudy and Randall gone, more or less Randall than Rudy. And then they lean into Berenger, and I think you're probably, because of where Randall and Rudy are, you're selling low, unfortunately. So I think what they end up getting back, I mean, Giannis seems like a big target. Wouldn't surprise me though if they get back like depth pieces and guys that are B+ guys. I mean, I don't know if you're going to get back that second star. Maybe they can get. There are some like buy low guys right now that have talent, like a Ja Morant, or like maybe even if they can get what's his face from the Mavs, Kyrie. Man, I am not sharp today. So there are some guys out there, like point guard wise, that I think the T-Wolves should have interest in, that they could probably land. But that's the thing that sucks here, is it's like Julius Randle looked like garbage. And, if they would have just traded him before this, he had way more value. That is my one critique with Tim Connolly. I think he does a great job, outside of the fact that, like, they're not the New England Patriots. They're not selling high on some of these guys when they should be.
He might have tried though, right? Like, and I'm not being a naysayer, but he might have tried and couldn't. I will say this. I'm not rewind to the Nuggets series. If you think Rudy doesn't have value, I'm showing that entire series to whoever I'm trying to trade him to. I'm a little less like, hey, he's got to go than you are, I think. The only issue, like, Ja Morant's the easiest one to go get. But what is he best at? Scoring at the rim. You can't score on the rim against Wemby, so don't go get that guy. He doesn't help you beat them, even if he was great. And honestly, with the stuff that's gone on with Ja, I do not think Timberwolves fans would welcome him with open arms. I think that would be a weird. And do you want that immaturity next to Ant's immaturity? Ooh, man.
No,
the answer. If it's me,
yeah, I don't know.
But I also get that.
I don't know that Ant's as immature as people make him out to be. You know, I think that, you know.
I was talking more off the floor stuff. You know,
what has Ant ever done off the floor? You know what I mean? Besides, like, impregnate some women, but I mean, all these guys do that.
Right.
Adrian Peterson, I don't know if you heard, he's got kids in Sioux Falls, so it happens. I look at Morant and I say, guy averages 8 assists a game. Like, go get a guy that can pass. I know he finishes at the rim. That's kind of what he's known for. But at the same token, like, if you could just get a guy that is like a pass first, and I don't know that, I mean, Morant probably doesn't look pass first in Memphis because he's playing with a bunch of boobs. But, like, if you're playing with Anthony Edwards, you're a pass first guy. Trust me.
Yep.
He's the alpha in the room. I don't care, you know, how Ja Morant sees himself. He is not Anthony Edwards, and it's going to be pretty clear if he ever comes to this team that he's not. So I think some of that stuff's a little bit overblown, although he is an idiot, and I agree. But it's like, you got to kind of look at, like, who's available. You know, like, you're not going out and getting somebody that, you know, some of these guys that are up and coming.
What if Kawhi is available, which I think he will be? You know, is that
would be great? But golly, is that guy ever healthy?
I know.
What I mean?
He's awesome. The Ja Morant thing, don't get me wrong. I mean, when that name comes up, the GIF that comes into my head is the Michael Jackson eating popcorn. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, I would absolutely watch every game, probably closer than I do now, just to see if it worked. Right? Like, that would be an exciting deal. But I don't see Tim Conley making a trade for a guy who's gotten worse the last 4 years. Like, we all remember when he dominated the Timberwolves in a couple of first round series, but he's not that guy anymore. And that's the scary thing. But there's going to be big changes. I don't think there's any question that he's going to try, right? Like, trades are hard. Like, you got to have the other guy has to want to do the deal. But I think he's going to try really hard. And I would be shocked if you say we're going to do one of these, if there's a big trade, that we're not talking at some point in the next 2 months.
Good. Well, good. I'm here if you're here. It's always fun. A couple more house cleaning items, and we'll send you on your way. Ayo Dosunmu, do we assume he's gone? He's a free agent. He liked his time. Thanked the teammates. Thanked the fans. Also said he's excited for free agency. So
I wouldn't assume that. I would say, you know, whether or not the Timberwolves can pay him what he can get on the open market, I think that's kind of what it hinges on. I think he wants to stay. He's not going to do like some of these guys and take a sweetheart deal to stay with the Wolves, but if they can afford him, I think he'll re-sign. I don't think he's as far gone as some people think. It's just, I also don't think he wanted to say, hey, I'm staying here because he wants to leverage himself. You know, it's called contract negotiations.
Yeah. I think he probably wants to be a starter, and he probably should be on this team without Dante. And I think they'll probably overpay him to some degree because they can't replace him. They used assets to go get him, and they probably are going to have to spend an extra $2 million a year to keep him. But they can, because he's on their team, as long as they stay under the aprons and don't get in that kind of trouble. I think they'll probably do everything they can to get him back in a Wolves uniform.
Do you guys think, like, will they explore a trade for a more high-profile point guard, and then if that doesn't work, they resign Ayo? That's kind of the thing that I was thinking is, like, the only way if he leaves is there like a Kyrie trade, or, you know, they go get someone else who's a little bit more high-profile, like a veteran. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I think we can kind of end it here with parting shots. I feel, the old standard panel sports talk format, like the sports reporters on ESPN. So I have one, and I'll leave the floor to you guys. If you want to react to it, it's fine. But we'll go back to Anthony Edwards. Asked how much work they have to do to fill the gap between them and these Western Conference Titans, the Spurs and OKC. Anthony Edwards just said, "I don't know, man. I don't think that's for me to answer." Asked why the Wolves came up short. Good question, no comment. Heat of the moment. I'm sure he's, it may have not been the best time for him to ask questions, but he's right. It's really not up to him. But the bigger picture is this was his 6th year in the league. He's a young phenom. I keep making the Michael Jordan light reference, and how close he is to Jordan, I don't know, but he's definitely a young phenom. As John Oppold has said, he'd be a bigger star in the NBA if the NBA would promote him. And maybe if he weren't with a rando team like the Minnesota Timberwolves, but for whatever reason, some that we've maybe talked about, the NBA doesn't. But he's probably a bigger star than he's given credit for. And also, while it still feels like he's really young, this is his 6th year. His athletic window, he's got a long way to go. He's going to be a great basketball player for a while if he's healthy. But his athleticism now, as he's in his mid-20s, that window is only so open. This current championship window is only open for so long. It took Michael Jordan 7 years to win a title. LeBron James, 9 years to win a title. Giannis, 8 years. So it takes some time. Even Kobe and Shaq together, 4 years. And I'm not quite putting Ant in that class, but again, he's definitely the star, and you definitely need to figure it out and get it right around him while he's still your guy and still is the centerpiece of a title opportunity. And he certainly needs help because already Wemby and SGA have more help, and that's why these teams are better than the Wolves and are surpassing the Wolves. And everything we just talked about, it's, get your popcorn ready for the next 2 months to see what they can put around him, including maybe the head coach. I want to see Finch stay, but we talked about that before the series was over, and they got pummeled. So I'll leave the floor, the rest of the show, to you two. Chris?
Yeah, I kind of twofold here. I think Ant was really frustrated with what you talked about because he came back compromised, injured, and watched Julius Randle not give effort. And that's frustrating. And that's why I think Julius Randle won't be on this team. Is you have a superstar come back hobbled, and that doesn't happen in that league very often. Guys don't put themselves at risk like that. So I love him for that. And then secondly, and maybe most importantly, if you are on social media or you're reading stuff in The Athletic or wherever you get your info, when you hear constantly over the last 3 days that they're going to build around Jaden, Naz, Ant, and Berenjay, that is coming from the front office. They want that out there. They want Ant to know, like, our plan is your guys here, and I don't know if Berenjay is his guy, but like, that's who we're going to build around. Like, that stuff doesn't get out unless they want it out. And they want it out. They want Rudy and Randall to realize that you're on the trade block without me having to tell you. And they want people to call them and say, hey, what will it take to get Rudy and that kind of stuff. I just think at the NBA level, and Tim Conley, he runs such a tight ship. We never heard about the trade with Burkett, right? Until it happened. You never heard you heard rumblings because, 6 months prior, but not during that. Same thing with the Rudy trade. It came out of nowhere. He is a tight-lipped guy. For that stuff to start to leak out, he wants it out there. That's what I'll leave you with.
Sure. Yeah, and that's part of my reason, too, why I'm saying, like, Rudy's gone, I think, because they're talking about Berenjay as being part of the future. And I like Rudy's defense, but, man, am I tired of watching him play offense. I mean, just, like, the amount of times he can't catch a good pass, it's so frustrating. I'm just sick of it. I'd rather, like, get somebody who's not as good at defense that can catch it and dunk it every time. Like, go, if they had, I don't know,
Jared Allen.
DeAndre Jordan. I mean, and he was the backup to Baron J. Like, that would be more appealing to me. Watching Baron J play was fun, even though I know, defensively they're going to be a little bit compromised. I think for next year, pace and space is the way to go. You outscore people. That's what the NBA is doing right now. And you have to have guys that shoot the three to beat a guy like Wemby. So lean into that. I just don't. I think the days of the Rudy Goberts are dwindling, and you got to have a guy that's got some offensive juice. That's kind of my opinion. But I think it'll be a crazy offseason. We'll see what happens. And I don't think they're that far off, to be honest. You add a couple pieces. These guys are developing. Like, give it another year. They've got a window, I would say, of 3 or 4 years left. In Ants, he's coming into his prime. Let's see where this takes us. But it does kind of suck watching the Spurs get so good all at once, because it's like, that was supposed to be my team 2 years ago.
Well,
and
if the Wolves got the number 1 pick in Wemby when they were actually a good team, like they did with David Robinson, they pulled the same thing. Everyone got hurt that year.
Yeah.
If Wolves have Wemby, they'd be the best team in the league. Like, that dude's different, man. Like, and there isn't anybody you're going to find that's going to be like him. He's, in the history of the NBA, name a guy like him. I'll wait.
Shaq.
And
Shaq, it just reminds me of Shaq. I remember watching Shaq and getting pissed off because nobody could stop him because he just run people over and dunk.
Yep.
Run people over and dunk. And foul called on the other team. And I'm like, what in the hell do you got to do to stop this guy? So, yeah, it kind of sucks, man. It's like every time the Timberwolves have a great player, there's a guy in the league that's unstoppable. So, what the hell?
I got to add this, John, if it's okay, but I had a college coach buddy of mine text me last night. Wemby made that play late where he kind of caught it at the high post, drove it, kind of fade away jumper, and then he hits that three. And the guy texts me, how do you guard that? And I simply text him back one word: pray. That's literally your only chance. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. So, but I do agree with you. As long as you have a healthy Ant, you got a fighter's chance, and I'll take that over the past for sure.
Yeah. Well, as MC Hammer once said, you've got to pray just to make it today. And as the Big Lebowski once said, that's like your opinion, man. Hey, this has been just a ball. All playoff stretch long. Fortunately, that lasts a while in the NBA. So we even, and the Wolves didn't even reach the conference finals. We could have gone on another month had they won those and made the NBA finals. But, I just really enjoy doing this, guys. I'm so glad you guys take your time to do this as well. About a year ago, I decided I could try to bother these Twin Cities guys who cover the Wolves, write about them, do podcasts. And then, but this is far more fun and I think just as entertaining and insightful to have a couple of diehards like you that have the emotion in it and are, it's just been fun. So thanks for doing it. And yeah, if something major happens, we'll get together again.
Sounds good.
For Chris Johnson and Johnny Oppold, I'm John. And for video producer Cordell Wright, that's it for Timberwolves Talk 2026 playoffs here on Happy Hour. Cheers.
You need anything else, John?
No, I think I'm good, Greg. I think I'm going to tap out.
All right. Have a good night.